Hi, people. Welcome back to the Becoming series. Right. So we're still wrapping up. And I'm sure you're laughing because I said wrapping up. I've been saying wrapping up for the last two, three videos, right? But really, in order for us to tie the whole conversation together, we need to take time to, we need to take time to do that. And so I was just talking about conversion, which is really where transformation begins when you convert your ideas. So let's dial back to where I started this conversation from. I alluded to something that happened in my home country, the unfortunate murder of a young lady, who was stoned to death and set ablaze by an irate mob because she said something that didn't go down well with them with respect to their religious beliefs, which leads me to the religious belief, which is actually quite a sensitive topic. For those of us out there who hold or who subscribe to one religion or the other, which you believe in, it's obviously quite difficult, for you to hear something that wants to promote contrary views, right? But it really takes those with insight or with patience to sit down to actually hear what somebody else is saying, whether or not they think it is something that promotes their religion or not. So I think patience is really a big part of the problem. Impatience rather, because the guys who did whatever they did were not ready to even hear the young lady out. They just, got the word that she had said this, that, or the other, and immediately their minds were inflamed and they just went after her, and they did not stop until she was dead. And it's just mind-boggling, right? Because this is this boils down to religious fundamentalism, what you believe, right? And it just calls to mind the words of Karl Marx, who famously said that religion is the opium of the people. A very controversial statement now. So you can imagine how people felt about it back then. But when you think about it, if you take time to analyze it, without trying to be all emotional and all that, there is truth to that. So what is opium? Opium is a drug that deadens the senses, right? And that makes you feel good, and it leads you into this realm of, yeah, what I'm doing, this is the be all and the end all. That's essentially what opium does. So it's like a drug, right, that you get hooked on after a while. And what Karl Marx was saying was that, people just tend to believe stuff without necessarily thinking through thinking through what they're hearing. They just take things hook, line, and sinker. And I think this is something that applies to virtually every religion, right? Even Christianity, right? Because there are people who hear so-called pastors and so-called men of God who tell them stuff which may not necessarily be correct. But these people, they see the guy with the white suit and the white shoes and the white Bible, and they're like, "Oh, this guy must be sent from heaven," and they just follow what he says, hook, line, and sinker. If you do some research on the internet, you'd come across some shocking stories and videos. Some pastor slapping his congregants, or asking them to do some crazy things like drink bathwater, things like that. And you're wondering, these people, is something wrong with them? But it just underscores um, the importance of Karl Marx's words, religion is the opium of the people, you know, because they don't question what the so-called leader is saying. They just see the guy, they hear what he's saying, and they're sold. The guy has effectively sold them an idea. And this was also the case with a very famous circumstance. This was sometime back in the day, in the 70s. Um, a guy called, I believe it was Jim James, something like that, or something like that. He started this cult, right? Where he led people to believe that he was, God incarnate, or something like that, and he led them into a place in the South Americas. It's called Guyana, If you've heard of the Guyana tragedy, this was exactly what happened. I think a whole bunch of people, hundreds and thousands of people, followed him into this place, in Guyana, and they ended up drinking poison and taking their lives because he had sold them an idea. And we're not talking about people who are destitute. We're talking about people in everyday life, had jobs, had families, had brains, and you're wondering what happened to their brains. How could they just listen to a guy who led them all the way to a bush and asked them to drink poison, and they went ahead to do that? Religion is the opium of the people. So the effect that religion has on the minds of the people is something that really needs to be dealt with. And I, for one, am very wary um, of religious beliefs, quote unquote, that ask you to do stuff that is, and I'm trying to be very careful here, right? They ask you to do stuff um, that you really shouldn't do. And I'm not talking about concepts of something like faith, right? Because Christians, we believe that faith really, as the Bible teaches us, it is the evidence of things that we have not yet seen. We believe that, for example, God has made provision for all the things that we need, but the way to get them and translate them into our reality is to believe, right? By believing on what God has said, right? Believing his word, we are activating the transfer of that thing that we need from the invisible realm to the visible realm. That is quite different from what I'm saying. I'm that it's quite different from asking someone to drink poison, right? And the person actually drinking. I mean, where is the sense in that? It just doesn't make sense. It just doesn't make sense. So we need to be careful. And I think one of the best ways to do that is to, yes, listen. Yeah, you can go ahead and listen, but you must find a way of benchmarking whatever this fellow is saying. There must be a source that allows you to determine that this thing that this person is saying, is it really true? Is it really correct? And then you can now, juxtapose those ideas and take an intelligent course of action, or the course of action that is best for you to do so. So we'll continue this discussion subsequently.